In this video, we're going to add some more Latin roots to our collection of morphs for the semester. So I'm going to start out with a couple that are derived from nouns. Now we said nouns could have up to two stems, the base and the combining, but sometimes the base and the combining are the same, or sometimes we really only use one of those stems. So sometimes there's just one form that we get from it. So first up, our really common one, aqua, right? A-Q-U. It means water, as you probably can guess. And so we see it in words like an aquarium, which is literally a place for water, or aquatic, or all sorts of words having to do with the water. And so in this case, one stem, because the base and the combining are identical. Next up, one we talked about in the last video, and that is the Latin word for body, which is corpus corpore. So the corpus is the base, the corpore is the combining. And we saw how when you don't really combine it with anything, you can have a word like corpus, or you can use it in multi-word phrases, like corpus delicti. But when you really want to combine it with other endings or prefixes, or really endings, it has to be something that comes next. Then you use corpore. So words like corporate, incorporate, corporeal, these use the combining stem. Another one with two forms is nox, noct, which is night. So nocturnal, for instance, is an animal that is active during the night. And again, base and combining. So we have, for instance, the word equinox. Nothing follows the nox in that case, so you don't need the combining form. But if we wanted to turn that into an adjective, we would say equinoctial. We would use this because we want to add an adjectival ending. And so equinoctial is an English word that means pertaining to the equinox. And then we have terre. Terre is earth. Words like terraform and terracotta all come from this word terre for earth. Sometimes the earth itself is referred to as terra because that was the Latin term for earth. But it too only has one stem because its base and combining are identical. Okay, so that's our nouns. And then we get to our verbs. And so our verbs more frequently have two stems, right? The present active and the perfect passive. And we said frequently the difference is that the perfect passive adds a T in Latin. That's many of the cases of Latin verbs. So first up, cap, capped, right? Cap, capped comes from a Latin verb which means to take or seize. Right? And so we said, okay, the present active is more often used in words like verbs, whereas the perfect passive tends to indicate a completed action and so is used for nouns, like the result of an action. And so we see this in words like capture, for instance. It's the result of having been seized, is the idea. Dic and dict is to say or speak. Right? Words like dictate and dictation come from this. Fac and fact is a very basic verb in Latin to make or do. We got a lot of words from this like fact and faction and things like that. Leg and lect, right? Leg and lect. This comes from a Latin word that means to read, but it can also mean more generally to collect or gather. The idea of collect or gather seems to be the earlier idea for the word, and it's used in words like collect, that contains it, or collection. Leg came later, and apparently the idea was that reading is just the act of collecting letters together, at least in the Roman mind, that's what it is. So we see it in words like legible or lector as well, where it means read, but sometimes it has the sense of gathering, like in collect, which is literally to gather together. Okay, scrib and script come from a Latin verb meaning to write. So scribe, scripture, inscription, right? To inscribe versus an inscription. We see all of these and more examples in English. Okay. Just two more. Then and vent, another pretty basic word. This is to go or to come. Can mean either. It's the same basic idea in the Roman mind. So things like intervene and intervention come from this, or convene, convention would come from this. Like convene would be like to go together, to come together, literally. And then one last one. This comes from a Latin verb, vor, meaning to eat. It does not have a second form. Well, no, technically it does have. It has vorat, is its perfect passive form. It's just that I can't think of a single English word that uses that, so I'm not going to bother, making you memorize it or anything. So, there technically is a second form, but we're not going to bother with it because I don't think any English word uses it. So vor, to eat. You see this a lot in the ending VORE. Think of a carnivore, an herbivore, an omnivore. It talks about what you eat. An omnivore eats everything. An herbivore eats grasses. A carnivore eats meat. And there are other ones as well, like voracious and so forth. Now, I did want to note that we looked at root extension with the Greek roots last time, and we said that sometimes we get into this situation where we have the morph that we use in a word that we get from a specific or a particular classical word, right? We derive a morph from it that we can use in English. But sometimes in that original language, there were related words, and we can pull morphs from them as well. And so we get sort of different forms of that root with extra bits added on. So I wanted to give you more examples here with Latin. So we have this Latin verb vorare, meaning to eat, right? And from it, we take off that verbal ending and we use it as vor, and we get words like omnivore, right? Pretty simple. But the Romans took that root vor and they made a adjective out of it, right? Meaning eating, something like that. And that adjective is vorax, voracus, right? That is there is an ending, so we take that off, and we get now a second related root that is an extension. It took the original vor and it added a c, right? So we get this vorac, right, as the new stem or as the new root, and this gives us English words like voracious. Right? You're voracious, you are capable of eating a lot. And so we have then, if we break it down, okay, well, we recognize the us, we recognize the vor, and then you've got this act that's left. What is that? Well, that's an extension, because actually this doesn't come straight from vor. It comes from a related word that added the ac to turn it into an adjective. Okay, one other example is nox noctis, which we just looked at as night. I'm going to keep taking the inflectional endings and noting and breaking them apart with a dash. So we know that means night, and so it can give us something like equinox or equinoctial. Right? But the Romans also took this word and added some more to it to turn it into a related word. They created the word nocturnalis. Right? By adding this ernal, they meant something that had to do with being inhabiting that time, being active during that time. And so then from that we get the word nocturnal. And we can recognize, okay, well, this was a suffix ending, and we know this is the root, but then where does this ern come from? Well, it's because they added that to make an adjective that means like inhabiting or active during the nighttime. So this is what I mean by extension, right? We sometimes see words that seem to have a root we know, and then a little bit following it that we can't identify it, and it's because it's probably from a related word in the original language that added that little bit, that extended the root a little bit, in order to turn it into something slightly different. Okay, so that's it for our new Latin roots. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.